One of the busiest airports in the United States is the Hartsfield-Jackson Airport in Atlanta, Georgia. It is a major hub for Delta Airlines. If you are ever in that area, I recommend that you visit the Delta Flight Museum at 1060 Delta Boulevard directly at the airport. It is worth the trip. The Delta Flight Museum is host to a retired Boeing 747-400 that served in the Delta fleet for a long time. You can walk around the 747, also this DC-9, and also go inside the 747. This wing has been turned into an excellent outlook with a nice view. This 747 made its first flight in April 1988 and belonged to Northwest Airlines, which later merged with Delta Airlines. When I was there, a FedEx MD-11 just passed by. So let's take a look here. At the Delta Flight Museum, you can get a good impression of the sheer size of the Boeing 747, many times called the Queen of the Skies. I think the 747 is not just about size, but it has a unique elegance. There are other big planes, even bigger planes, but the 747 has its own unique style. 230 feet long, 210 feet wingspan. Just take a stroll underneath the big engines or underneath the body of the 747. And just remember, this thing was meant to fly, not just stand here. The inside of this Boeing 747 has been turned into a unique part of the museum experience. The structure of the plane is exposed since much of the paneling has been removed. You can look underneath this plexiglass floor and you can look outside, and of course you may walk upstairs into the top deck and also take a look at the cockpit. Delta Airlines even asks you to share your own 747 experience. Well, my 747 story is this. It's nice to see a 747 in a museum like this. I am glad they honor the legacy of this plane. But a plane is meant to fly. Many airlines are retiring aging 747-400s, but they're not replacing them. The best way to honor the legacy of the 747 is not a museum and not celebrations or speeches. The best way to honor the legacy of the 747-400 is a new order for the 747-8. The show must go on. I believe some of the major airlines have some catching up to do at that. We want to see some new 747-8 in service. Especially those airlines in the United States should consider buying planes made in the USA and start contributing to the economy and the society. That's how you give back to your community. Delta Airlines is absolutely right when it tries to fight unfair state subsidies that Arabic countries funnel into their state-sponsored airlines. But you must defend U.S. jobs by buying U.S. aircraft. That's obvious, simple, and it is imperative. Let me give you an example. Tell me, what's wrong with this picture? Take a good look. It says American, but all I see is a bunch of European airplanes. What's American about that? Call yourself European Airlines, but quit calling yourself American Airlines unless you start buying American airplanes. If this was American, then this picture would be full of Boeing 737s and MD-90s. Now take a look at this picture. Now that looks a whole lot better. That's a Boeing 777, and it is American. Truly American. Another classic at the Delta Flight Museum is the McDonnell Douglas DC-9, the short-range jet. I enjoyed flying in these, especially when you were assigned a seat in the rear close to the turbine engines. Those engines had a very nice and loud sound. Closely related to the DC-9 are the newer models called MD-80, 82, 83, and so on, up to the MD-90. What you see now is an MD-88 being pushed back at the Nashville, Tennessee airport. Years ago, those planes were not pushed back but powered back on their own with reverse thrust. This used to be the case with Northwest Airlines. Definitely, I've seen this at the Detroit airport. They had plenty of DC-9s, and Northwest merged with Delta in 2008, so Delta got all these older DC-9s and they kept flying for a couple more years. When you go inside the actual Delta Flight Museum building, you will pass these Delta cars and trucks. Among the airplanes displayed on the inside is this nice and clean looking Douglas DC-3. That's a nice plane. Next is this Boeing 767, which has been nicknamed the Spirit of Delta. The story behind this particular jet is that Delta Airlines was in a financial crisis in the early 1980s. Then employees, retirees, and friends of Delta Airlines pulled together and donated $30 million toward the purchase of this Boeing 767. You may walk inside, look around, and go all the way into the cockpit. That's a very nice Boeing 767. I don't really like the idea of planes being stuck into a building for display. They were meant to fly. But the Delta Flight Museum is definitely a place you ought to visit. Very interesting. If you've never been around a Boeing 747 or never been around these kind of planes, then this is definitely a very good place for you to discover those planes, just to see the sheer size of them, walk on the inside, take a look at the engines, take a look into the cockpit. You can do it all. There is even some kind of flight simulator at the flight museum. Just check it out on their webpage and enjoy the trip to Georgia. Thank you very much for watching this.